Forget what I'm supposed to say. Now, our next speaker is someone who we've worked with a lot, and he's a guy who I think is, he's probably the most kind of self-motivated, give it a go, like just jump in kind of guy that we've had the pleasure to work with. If you ever go to his website, you'll see lots of pictures of him jumping out of a plane, and I think that really tells you a lot of kind of Sujan's. I've given away his name. It gives you a lot of insight into Sujan's mentality, and he's going to tell you how he takes that mentality into creating the perfect presentation. Please give a warm round of applause for Sujan Patel.
Thank you, David, for the wonderful introduction. I am a skydiver, but secretly I am scared to death of public speaking. And so naturally I should talk to you about how to give the perfect presentation. But what this presentation should be really called is how to give the perfect presentation if you're an internet nerd, awkward human being, and haven't had much social engagement with people. I want to tell you a story real quick. Look, hi, I'm Sujan Patel. I want to tell you a story before I jump into this about this time I was asked to speak at a conference. And it was a last-minute edition. It was in Brazil, so I was like, hell yeah, I get to go to Brazil? I'm in. I didn't really know the audience. I was added about 2 weeks before the presentation because somebody dropped out. And I was going to talk about growth hacking, which is something I'm really passionate about. But at the end of the day, I somehow, they emailed me, there's a lot of interest about growth hacking, and so I somehow got to the top and ended up keynoting this thing. I thought there was going to be a few hundred people there. To be honest, this was one of my first few times speaking, so I didn't do much research on the audience. I didn't do all the right things I probably should have done. But I realized when I get there, I'm speaking in front of 3,000 freaking people. I'm like, holy crap, I'm scared of people, not planes. And I'm scared to death because I'm like generally an awkward kid, and I write a lot of content. I write for Forbes and a lot of other places, and do a lot of marketing, but I don't really get a lot of face time with people or speak in large groups, so this was like the scariest thing I've done. As a 31-year-old human being that jumps out of planes and races cars, I'm scared to speak in front of people. So that's kind of what this presentation is about. And at the end of the day, so I went up there, I went to Brazil, I went on stage in front of 3,000 people. I was the first speaker, so naturally there was technical difficulties. My clicker wasn't working, my microphone wasn't working, the confidence slides weren't working, so I had to look back all the time. What am I talking about again? Like, I had 35 slides, I had so much information. But at the end of the day, I thought I did a horrible job. I went back, I was sick, and it was just a horrible experience for me personally and emotionally. But it turns out people loved it. After that, I got invited back to speak again at many more places. And I was like, holy crap, did I do a good job? What the hell happened? And so this presentation is really about what I did right. But before I jump into anything else, make sure, I want to quote John Maxwell, and at the end of the day, a presentation that you give, no matter who you're giving it to, make sure it's about the audience, it's about the value, it's about them, and talk about what people care about, not what you care about. And if you can always talk about what you care about, as long as you can draw a string or draw a connection to what the audience cares about. And so this is really a true life story of me speaking at a conference in front of 3,000 people, doing a horrible job, or at least I was, but doing a lot of things right. And what ended up happening is I'm a marketer, and so I kind of marketed this thing. I did a lot of things in social media right, and I did a lot of things kind of afterwards. I talked to the audience, I gave my book away for free, and so I had a lot of good content. I gave 25 growth hacks, so people were like, oh, I love that idea, I love that idea. And so people didn't really focus on how bad of a job I did speaking in front of people. People focused on like, that was a good tactic, oh, I love your book, I tweeted you, I followed you on social media, whatever. So that's what works. So the 3 things I'm going to talk about actually here is knowing your audience, the framework to use, and it's simple. I'm not a professional speaker, nor will I ever get there. I may be a professional skydiver at some point, but speaking is something I'm scared to death of doing, and why I love speaking is because it gets my heart rate up. And as an adrenaline junkie, that's all you're always looking for. And the last, I'm just going to leave you with 6 tactics. So first and foremost, just as you are marketing your website or marketing your business or selling to somebody, when you're giving a presentation, you want to know your audience almost as well as you know your customers. knowing your customer persona, what they like, what they don't like, what actually triggers them, right? Do you love cats? Do you love Taylor Swift? Because I should have had a Taylor Swift background if I knew people love Taylor Swift in my audience. Also understanding people's pain points. And then at the end of the day, spend 25% of the presentation actually just solving those pain points. And you give relief essentially for the exact problem people are facing. And know where your customers are coming from. That's easy on the web because you have Google Analytics. How do you do that in person or when you're giving a presentation? This could be used for VC presentation, this could be a webinar, whatever. All you have to do is communicate better with the organizers and try to get an understanding of what people and where they're coming from. And at the end of the day, you could do things like do a survey. I know at a conference I spoke at, I convinced the speaker or the organizer, like, hey, can I send an email to your audience and just survey them, what they like, what they don't like, and it was a goofy survey. And I got to understand what people were, where they're coming from, what they had. And know what they know about, find out what they know about you, right? So I'm talking about, do they know your name? And I'll tell you a little later about how to get people to know your name and a little about you before you go on stage. But at the end of the day, you want to get people, you want to understand what they know and what they don't know. The last thing you want to do is introduce yourself, this long-winded response of what you do when everybody already knows what you do. You should peel back that layer, maybe talk about something personal or get the relationship to the next level. So the framework I use is pretty simple. I love cars, so naturally I'm going to reference something about cars. And I use the CARS framework. It's really simple, it's easy to do, and anybody can do it. It goes with challenge, action, results, and social proof. The result and social proof is more of a marketing thing than anything else. The challenge, you really want to understand what your customers' challenges are, or your audience, or who you're speaking to, and what their challenges are. And then the action should essentially be solving that problem, right? There's a challenge, your presentation is literally the actions people need to take to actually solve that. And you want to make sure you have results, right? So you want to make sure you have results that you can prove that, hey, people after hearing or doing these actions have actually worked, it's actually done something. And then lastly, social proof. And results and social proof are very, very different. Social proof could be logos, like I write for Forbes. I'm more authoritative because I write for that place. I've been featured on blah, blah, blah. Like, it doesn't always have to be about you, but you need to kind of show off a bit, and you need logos or something of that nature. And the results are more like case studies or use cases, testimonials, real life feedback of people being successful. Or let's say you're selling a software, and the challenge, you're talking to salespeople and you're selling them some sort of marketing automation software or some sort of automation software. You need to understand their challenge. Oh, what's your challenge? It's salespeople don't want to do anything complicated. Cool. The action you need, it's really simple. This is all your salespeople need to do. Oh, and here's all the results people that have used this format or our product has done. And then, oh, here's all the places we've been featured. We have 5,000, 10,000 customers, whatever. Lead with your best foot forward. And that's my framework. It's not that complicated. It's actually quite simple. And now going into the tactics. These are the things I think anyone here can do. It took me a long time, again, being an awkward person, being scared to death of people. It took a while, but at the end of the day, you have to set the stage. As I started this conversation and this presentation, I started with a story. I wanted you guys to resonate with what I had to say, and then I could lead in from that. Many people earlier today in this whole conference have talked about including storytelling. It's very, very important. You don't always have to include storytelling, but that definitely captures that audience. But you have to set the stage, something. So my set the stage was, this presentation is for awkward internet geeks who are scared to death of public speaking, which is, let's face it, most people are scared of public speaking. There's a stat, I think it's like 65% of people are. I could be making that up, I don't know. But at the end of the day, set the stage of what you are speaking about and the topic. And it's more important to actually get people to look at you and listen to you, not necessarily listen or look at the slides for tons of information. I found that even if your content, your presentation is crap, you deliver horribly, if you have a beautiful design, people will take pictures and tweet it. And then later no one actually listens to your presentation, so you can at least have tweetable or shareable pictures or whatever. But a beautiful design really resonates with people, and it makes a crappy presentation really good. So make sure you have a beautiful design. The other thing is brevity. Be brief. In your presentation, don't load it up with like 50 things in one slide. Nobody can remember that. Yes, you're going to take a picture, but when in life do you ever listen to somebody speak and take a picture and you're like, I'm going to do those 50 things I just learned? No, you just somewhat, you might reference it, but if you're probably going to forget about it. So be brief. And again, when you're brief, you guys are not focusing on my slides. You're focusing hopefully on me and the person presenting. So I can adjust the story, I can adjust the angle, I can adjust how I present things if my slides are brief and they're short and to the point, because I can give you, I can tailor my conversation closer to that, to what resonates with you guys. And I talked about this, or actually the first slide I presented was knowing your customer, and I intentionally left a lot of stuff on there, and I guarantee you when I talk to everybody after this, you're not going to remember all the 5 things I listed on there. Mainly because you can't. It's a lot of information to process. So being brief is very, very, very important. Here's a marketing tactic I use. Again, I'm a marketer, and you don't have to be a good public speaker to give a great presentation, because people are going to remember the first thing and the last thing. And so what I like to do is I like to leverage social media. So I don't know if you guys are on Twitter right now, or LinkedIn or whatnot. I've been tweeting, I've been sharing my slides for the presentation. I've been talking for the last week about how excited I am to be here. I'm actually really, really nervous, but I tweeted, I'm excited, right? If you're monitoring this hashtag, you might have seen me. What I wanted to do was build hype. I wanted to build awareness. I started connecting and tweeting back at people, retweeting other presenters and other things like that before I even got here. And that's really, really important, because what you do before you get there sets that stage, and you can use social media for that. And you can also use social media for afterwards, right? So I'm a marketer. I sell products. My product, contentmarketer.io, sells to marketers. What do they like? They like marketing. So what do? I talk about marketing. And I tweeted this, I shared this on my Facebook and LinkedIn, and all my friends are already retweeting it. I'm looking good in front of my audience, and then they're making me look good because they like my content and essentially sharing it further on the web. In fact, when I give presentations, I get a couple hundred people, whatnot, but the slides afterwards, and I share it, they get thousands and tens of thousands of views, because I make sure I leverage the hell out of that content on social media. So you can do that. Because if you use social media to explain who you are before you get there, then you don't have to explain who you are. I don't have to get your trust right now. I've already got your trust, or a portion of people's trust beforehand, and all I have to do is talk about what I'm going to talk about. So build hype using social media. It's really, really easy. I know Twitter isn't the biggest thing here, but LinkedIn works the same. Facebook Live, in fact, I'm Facebook Live in this right now, so most of the people I know are sleeping right now because they work on the internet. They don't wake up until like 11. Next thing is retargeting. So just as you use social media to build up hype, the people that click on your stuff, again, all offline, or even if I showed a link here, you clicked on that link, I want to retarget you. And I want you to remember me. You're going to probably remember what the last thing I said and the first thing I said, but I want you to remember when you go home a month from now. So you can use retargeting. There's a site called adlinks.co. There's also many other retargeting platforms you can use, but at the end of the day, you can use retargeting to keep in touch with those people. So when I share my slides, when I give out a copy of my ebook, I make people give me their email address, or I make people visit a website, and then I'll retarget them. And I'm not going to sell them with anything else. I don't really care about selling. If you're building a brand or you want to get exposure, what you should focus on is adding more value. So you guys have now just gotten exposed to me. What I want to do is then give you more value later. I want to introduce you to other content I've written, other presentations I've done, where else I'm going. And again, it's not all about me at the end of the day, but I'm just showing you how you can use retargeting to do that. And again, adlinks.co, super simple. I just found out about this a few months ago, and it doesn't even require you to add a cookie. All you have to do is just use that redirect link. Anything you share, it will be retargeted. So essentially you have a lot wider reach with your retargeting. And the last thing is to customize your presentation to your audience, to your audience's challenge. I take it a step further, right? So everyone here is interested in speaking, presentation, sales, and marketing. So I'm talking and introducing a little bit of sales, a little bit of marketing, or actually a lot of bit of marketing, a little bit of public speaking, adding that story. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure you customize your presentation to that audience. And that's actually why I like to be very, very brief, or that's why you see 3 words on the slide and not 100, or not 5 or 6 bullet points, because I can then, all I have to do if I want to customize this presentation, let's say I give another talk on this same topic, all I have to do is change my words, change what I do and what I say, not everything around the presentation. And it sounds simple, but when you start adding presentations and words and everything together, it gets really, really complicated. It gets daunting, especially if you're not naturally a good speaker and you're awkward. I remember when I spoke at that conference in Brazil, I had the flu. And I think David earlier talked about how not to get bubbles coming out of your mouth because your mouth is so dry. There's literally like bubbles. I wish they were like thought bubbles, but there were bubbles coming out of my mouth. Luckily, the light was so bright it kind of dulled it. But at the end of the day, that's what happened in my first presentation. But if you customize it, and if you actually tailor it to around your challenges of your customers or your audience that's listening, you're going to resonate with them a lot more. So my presentation at the end of the day is short and sweet. I want to leave you guys enough room to ask me questions. If you have more questions about that story, it was the worst week of my life going to Brazil. I thought I was going to die, but it turned out to be a great thing. But remember, like, if you're using it to sell, if you're presenting to people, people like people. You don't care about my brand. I have to get you to care about my brand. So just like in sales, people buy from people, right? Brian Kramer talks about, like, he wrote a book on human to human, right? There's B2B, B2C, e-commerce. It's all these different business models, but behind that, there's people. And that's the same thing you need to remember when you're presenting. There's people you're talking to, and that's who are going to be listening. That's who's going to be sharing this stuff. That's who's going to understand or get exposure to your company or your brand. And if you can appeal to that layer of people using the CARS framework, you're going to do really well. Guys, that's my presentation. Open up to questions. Anyone have any questions? Nope. Thanks. Cool, yeah. You want to just say it?
You said at the beginning that you are quite scared, or being an introvert is quite nerve-wracking for you to do that.
Yep.
What are the kind of routines or practices that you go through every time before you give a presentation that, yes, you're going to be nervous anyway, but that just allows you to go up there? Because I think it was a very confident presentation personally. What is it that you do that allows you to get into that stable frame of mind?
Yeah, so I kind of, since I'm a marketer, I try to, like, there's this presentation, there's all these slides, there's these animations happening, but I try to break it down into like a note, like a Word doc, and I say, what are the 4 or 5 things I want to hit? All I really care about to prepare for is I rehearse multiple times the first 5 to 7 minutes of my presentation. And I want to make sure I can capture that audience up front. And then after that, knowledge or my expertise essentially just kicks in naturally, and the rest of the presentation usually flows well. But I would love to do like breathing exercises and stuff like that. I wish I knew that information a few years ago, so I could have done that beforehand. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just prepare for the first 5 to 7 minutes. I break it down into like the 3 to 5 things I want to hit during the presentation, and I focus on the 1 to 2 and the delivery of the 1 to 2 things. Any others?
Hi. So you mentioned a little bit on growth hacks that you've shared with people in the past. So
Yeah.
I was just curious if you could share a couple of them, your favorite ones, or maybe the latest ones that you've thought about.
Yeah, just around presentations or just in
Not
general?
presentations, but actually more in like sales aspect.
Yeah, cool. So, so I'm a marketer, growth hacker. Actually, it says growth hacker on my badge. I'm super excited because growth hacker means so many different things to so many different people. But what I like to do as a marketer leveraging growth is I like to work with the sales, customer support, success teams, the guys that are onboarding pretty much at the end of the day, the people, the guys